Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Theater here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We are celebrating Demolition Man 1993. This is the 30th anniversary, and Couch Potato Theater is where we celebrate our favorite movies. Now, I'm holding up a Blu-ray copy here. This here is actually the Taco Bell original version. This one, however, is from overseas, Australia or Canada. I think this was Australia, yes. This is the Pizza Hut edition. We'll go more into that later. I can't do this alone, guys. First of all, let me go ahead and get my brother from another mother, Mr. Kyle Wagner. Welcome, dude. What's up?
Well, since it is the first podcast we're doing after Thanksgiving, it is appropriate that this is a rematch episode.
Yes,
Couch
it is.
Potato Theater.
Yes, we have done this one before, but this was back in the old days of audio only on the Fandom Podcast Network. But now that we are on YouTube, it's a visual medium now, we have to have more fun with that and do slideshows and show props, because that's what we do here on the Fandom Podcast Network. But I can't talk Demolition Man, action movies, Australia, without our own lethal mullet himself, Mr. Adam O'Brien. Adam, what's up, brother?
Oh, sorry, guys. You caught me using 3 seashells. Hey, how you going, guys? Yeah, this movie is a bit of an action movie. I think it might do with a bit of mullet.
No, wait a minute. I thought Adam Adam obviously didn't get the email and the memo that he was supposed to dye his hair blonde for this podcast. And we're overalls. And we're overalls too.
I know, right? Overalls. You got to wear the overalls. That has to be a big part of it, of course.
Well, just stay away from the tax evasion.
Okay. So we'll get into all that. Kyle's throwing out some really good heaters out there, inside jokes here, but we're going to talk about all that. But first of all, clean your 3 seashells. I got mine right over here. We're going to discuss that later. This, of course, we are talking Demolition Man, the 30th anniversary, 1993. This is the year 2023, and we have to celebrate it. It is an excellent action film. I love it, and we're here on the Fandom Podcast Network. And Los Angeles, 1996, burning away here at the Dear Hollywood sign. And Demolition Man just went to, hold on a sec, Kyle. Demolition Man just went to work here. All right. This is what they do. Went to work here. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, are we sure this isn't San Francisco 2023?
And we should have brought out marshmallows.
Did I miss Kyle? I don't get you. What?
Well, the San Francisco has been just a big mess from what I've saw. But I gotta say, Los Angeles does recover nicely. I mean, you guys are doing pretty well. I mean, 90. I didn't realize it was that bad in 96, Kevin. No wonder you moved to Atlanta.
Yes. As I said, this is Couch Potato Theater, Demolition Man, but we got the lethal mullet himself, Mr. Adam O'Brien. Why are we having you on here, man? You know stuff about action movies?
I might know just a tiny little bit about action movies, in particular when it comes down to the 90s. I specialize in that in the 80s. I mean, because that was the golden period of your type A action movie, those that are built around muscle-bound, martial arts-bound, explosive, guns blazing action movies where, they're just craziness happen. And over on, of course, the show, we cover all that sort of stuff. And even we've had some of the great highlight episodes over the last couple of weeks, looking at even obscure films like Cuffs with Christian Slater. We've been looking at some great old classics like Universal Soldier, which was, one that actually more successful than people remember it being. And ties into a little bit in this one because this was originally meant to be the next film after Universal Soldier for Jean-Claude Van Damme and, of course, Steven Seagal. Seagal was going to be playing John Spartan, and of course Simon Phoenix was going to be Van Damme. Bonjour.
Kevin, I'm a little confused because I could have sworn Adam before the podcast told me how much he was looking forward to doing this Downton Abbey episode of.
Mate, too. Downton Abbey.
Kyle, stay on track, buddy. Stay on track here. All right, guys. I just want to throw up some posters here. The original one there on the left. If you're listening to this audio podcast, by the way, please join us on YouTube because we're going to share some really cool pictures and some funny stuff with what we're going to be talking about here. I think that one in the middle there might be some fan art. There's been a lot of cool different interpretations of Demolition Man. And the reason why we're also doing this is because Demolition Man is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is in my top 5. And there used to be a time where I was ashamed to like this movie because this movie was uncool for a while, guys. This movie was something that was kind of like silly, it seemed like at the time. But then as time went on, we started to see stuff kind of creep up. And we're going to talk about couple of the things that Demolition Man predicted, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. I thought, first of all, a little plot description for those that may be a little fuzzy on what is happening here. All right. Frozen in 1996, Simon Phoenix, a convicted crime lord, is revived for a parole hearing well into the 21st century. Revived into a society free of crime, Phoenix resumes his murderous rampage and no one can stop him. John Spartan, the police officer who captured Phoenix in 1996, has also been frozen, this time for a crime he didn't commit. In 2032, the former city of Los Angeles, San Diego, and Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, have merged into a peaceful, utopian San Angeles. Unable to stop him with their non-violent solutions, the police release Spartan to help capture Phoenix. Now, 36 years, Spartan had to adapt himself to the future society he has no knowledge about. Now we're laughing because it's showtime for me. I had to show my toys here. So,
Kevin, wait a minute. I'm confused. Was that a Simon Phoenix figure or a Carlton from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air figure? I can't.
Or is it a Dennis Rodman figure? All right, guys. I want to get your. There's a lot of funny taglines in this. I'm just going to name a few here. 21st century's most dangerous cop, the 21st century's most ruthless criminal. In the year 2032, Simon Phoenix escapes from prison on the verge of bringing crime to San Angeles. One man is back as his duty is the last resort. They call him the Demolition Man. I want to know, when and where were you guys when you first saw this movie? Mr. O'Brien, I'm going to start with you.
So I knew there was a new Stallone movie coming out, and I wasn't really up on science fiction movies at the time. And I was reading a magazine actually written by a dear friend of ours, and of course somebody that somehow came around the rabbit hole back into my life in this way, obviously in the podcast world. That is John Mosby. And of course, him along with Bay Logan had Impact Magazine. And there was a big magazine article about Simon Phoenix, this new character that Wesley Snipes was playing, and an interview with him and I think some of the crew, but not Stallone. And that's what got me thinking, oh, wow, there's something coming up. My birthday came around the corner, and my mum gave me the paperback for my birthday. And I read this thing. I'm like, oh, I've got to go and see the movie. And the movie had just come out that December. And I went and saw it at the cinemas. And I'm like, wow, what did I just see? Not only was it a pop culture, mashup of all proportions of everything Warner Brothers, music-wise, with Red Hot Chili Peppers influences, with influences for Lethal Weapon 3, the gun sounds and foley from obviously all the other Warner Brothers action movies at the time. There's even some Die Hard foley in there. But the great thing about this was I was a huge Stallone fan. I'd follow him all the way from First Blood all the way through. Obviously, Tango and Cash, a huge one for us here on the channel. But that really just blew my mind. And so I went and consecutively saw it 15 times at the cinema. Now, did you?
Wow, that's more than I did in the theater. That's impressive. Kyle, what about you? When and where?
I saw it in the theater when it premiered, but this is the interesting thing about Demolition Man. This is actually a very interesting time in Stallone's career because he's coming off some stinkers here. If you go back, he did Rocky V in 1990. We don't talk about Rocky V.
Yep.
Cool. We do.
He did that movie Oscar in 91. Kevin, he had a guest appearance on one of your all-time favorite shows, Dream On, in 1991.
Wow.
And then he did Stop or My Mom Will Shoot in 1992.
No
So-
one was asking for comedic version of him at this time. No one was.
So he was just turning it around. He had done Cliffhanger, which came out in 93. And then it was this. And this movie was kind of like, because Cliffhanger kind of got him back into the action realm there a little bit. This movie got a lot of heavy advertising on this because it ties to different major franchises, especially at that time, whether it was Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, whatever you want to claim. There was a lot of advertising for this film. This film had a ton of hype going into it. And you had Stallone, you had Wesley Snipes, who was on the rise at this time, really starting to establish himself in action films. And so you had these two guys who people were excited to see on the screen together. You throw in a little Sandra Bullock, you throw in a few other familiar faces in this film, and you've got Demolition Man. And then something kind of, I don't want to say went wrong, but something took a left turn at Albuquerque, and it took a little while for it to get back on track.
Yeah, that's a great point, Kyle. And by the way, you mentioned Sandra Bullock. This is pre-Speed Sandra Bullock. This is how I discovered Sandra Bullock. I was crushing on her when this film came out. Like, who is this girl? And then Speed. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, so I saw this in the theater. I know I saw it more than once. I love the trailers. I like the idea. I was eating Taco Bell a lot.
Weren't we all, because we were all broke and it was a cheap ass meal.
Yes, it was. And I saw this more than once, and I love the fact that what I found interesting about it was that it took place in 1996, and this was 1993, at least the beginning of the film. And we had the LA riots and all this kind of stuff, and it was politically, it was an interesting time in the United States. My beloved hair metal was starting to die because of grunge. All kinds of stuff was starting to happen. There was a turn, and so it starts off in 1993, and the world has gone to crap. It was kind of like seeing Escape from New York set also in the 90s. And I'm like, we're going to get Escape from New York and this crap happening. And then I love the fact then it shoots into the future. And one of the things I just want to mention real quick too, is to me, this movie really hasn't aged badly at all, except for maybe like, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer, I like that guy, or a couple other little things that are kind of like, okay, that's dated. But when it comes to the technology, yes, you could see that they've used early 90s technology and stuff like that. And we'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit later. But, when it comes into what their version of the future is. And before I forget, guys, have you noticed that all of the citizens are basically wearing Jedi robes, but in a little bit different way? But most of them are Star Wars Jedi robes.
Yeah.
Kyle?
Kevin, I did want to point out too, actually, and it's a bit of an influence on this movie, because in 92 is when we had the Rodney King riots in LA. And that was a big influence on some of the writing for this movie and the concepts they came up with for the beginning of the film.
I watched
Free Jack.
Yeah, Free Jack. That's right. Yeah. And also too, I wanted to touch on your opinion on the audio commentary, Adam. I listened to maybe the first 10 minutes of it while we were prepping for the show, and they were talking about how they filmed this like 6 months after the Rodney King thing. But I wanted to get your insight on you listening to the audio commentary, because it was the director and Joel Silver, if I remember correctly.
Correct. So Joel Silver is the one that sort of introduces everything. And then Marco Brambilla, the director, who was a first-time director. He'd worked on commercials before this movie. And basically they're talking about the setup and how little time they really had, because this was one that he was brought on very last minute. And when he came onto the film, they had to set up things very quickly. That whole prologue was not even thought of in the original scripts. They just jumped straight to the future, to 2032 San Angeles. Yeah. And they said, well, there's no setup. We need a setup to sort of pay off. And so a lot of it is talking about how they built up the characters by doing a James Bond style prologue, bringing people in. And, so you think about it, the original edition of this, which would have been the maybe 91, 92, would have had Seagal waking up straight away. straight away. And that's what they talk about. They talk about those earlier versions before another rewrite came in and basically had to tailor it more to Stallone's, obviously more gruff sort of style. And then, of course, just letting the ad-libbing happening. And apparently that's what they're talking about was, especially Wesley Snipes, is that they had to tone down his martial arts on screen because it was too fast.
Yeah.
And way too fast.
That's what they said to Jet Li in Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah. I mean, they're just legit so quick that the camera can only do 24 frames a second. So they need to slow it down and actually show the projection. And anyway, but with that and the ad-libbing, they basically cut a lot of Phoenix's actual lines and just let him run with it. And especially with the history of violence area, that was totally unscripted as far as dialogue. He just walked in and used what he could. You know, what would you do? You fish out of water. And of course he goes, whoa, holy bleep, look what's up there. And then he just literally succeeds to pull down every single firearm from the last 200 years.
What was some of the most surprising things that came out of the audio commentary? Because to get Joel Silver on it, he's the mega producer of the 80s and 90s when it comes to films and stuff, and he was crucial behind a lot of scenes there. But what was some of the biggest surprises you heard about the audio commentary that surprised you about this film?
Big one was that obviously Point Break had been such a huge hit, right? And one of the leads from that is, of course, Laurie Petty. They were really going after Laurie Petty like crazy. And when she came in, she just did not gel with Stallone whatsoever.
Interesting.
And they didn't have that camaraderie. Whereas Joel Silver said, look, I know this girl who's been doing the rounds and auditions. She's very charismatic and she's funny, which is not what Laurie Petty was. So they got with Sandra Bullock. And of course, she plays off people well. So you can imagine, like, the original vision of even Speed that she would do later was meant to be with Jeff Speakman and her.
Wow.
Casting changes.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the more interesting aspects of this film, too, is because of the casting changes and who they got involved. This film went from a very hard edge type action film to kind of an action comedy as well. And
kind of like Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
I think with even a more emphasis on the comedy in this than in Tango and Cash.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's a good point, Kyle. Adam, thank you for that. Was there anything else in the audio commentary?
There was one thing that really stuck out was the matte painting. So a lot of the effects work is not finished in the film, and they really wanted to work on that. So there was a lot of motion control shots they'd set up to get done, but basically Silver and the rest of the producers said, look, no, we can't add to this budget because it's going to cost you another, whatever it is, 10 million. And at that time they had a release date. Sadly, they had to release. And of course, release date or tracking shots. Release date. Right. Let's make money. It's a business. They've got to do it. I still think a lot of the shots of San Angeles that they did, although is literally just the places they went to, like the exhibition center, and some of those, like the cryo facility being a penal facility and all that sort of stuff. Those really work well because they're using that style of, simplistic architecture of that time, the brutalistic versus that sort of neo-fascist almost look. And that's what they've done, because you think about it, it's George Orwell's 1984 on steroids, but, then we've got the additions to it.
That's a good. I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I saw in the early part of the audio commentary or heard was the director talking about how whatever sets that they did have, or even the backgrounds of the real locations, he wanted to make sure that he got them in the shot, because whatever production they did get done that looked really good, he wanted to make sure, even though some of it was blurred out because they were focusing in on the characters, it was there and it was done. And I think they had some really good shooting locations. There's the famous tunnel that they have that was also in Back to the Future 2. That very long tunnel that's in it's Pasadena or somewhere like that. That's been used in a lot of films, and so it's a great location for a car chase. But guys, Adam, do you have one more thing?
I was going to say too, I think with that they're able to obviously compromise and bring in things. The other thing was bringing in a designer that had worked on Dune and a number of others to do those Mad Max like outfits. I mean, it's very Road Warrior when you go underground. And that was literally the benchmark was, okay, we need to do post-apocalyptic on a budget. How do we do it? How the hell did they do that on Road Warrior? And that's what they did.
Yeah, I'm looking at Simon Phoenix's. I have it playing in the background. I'm looking at his outfit when he's getting ready to attack Edgar Friendly and Sylvester Stallone, John Spartan, when they're down there in the underground. And it's like you can tell he's got like a piece of tire like going around. It's just like, but it looks cool. It looks really cool. Okay, guys. So one of the most iconic scenes in the film, of course, is when in the beginning, John Spartan is getting ready to also be frozen for his punishment, and then it's a tough scene to see because we see him all of a sudden, they add the thing and he gets frozen. But as I was putting the notes together today, as I was doing this, Adam, there was an article that was put up, and there was some people that were doing a little, as they say, antiquing in Australia. A nude frozen Sylvester Stallone mannequin was discovered in an Australian antique shop. The frozen face Demolition Man prop was going for $6,000 Australian at a New South Wales shop. And it was the original Twitter post was by Reed McCarter. And that was last year in 2022 when this was published. And during the 90s, a prop version of Sylvester Stallone cryogenically frozen character in Demolition Man was hung in the ceilings of Planet Hollywood restaurants. Can you imagine being Stallone and walking around?
Can you imagine your burgers coming, you look up and there's naked Stallone over your head?
Yeah. But I got pictures of this in the picture on the left is the original one at a Planet Hollywood. And then the pictures on the right are what was discovered in this antique shop. And so, yeah, it was in this town in Australia. And it says here, despite Sylvester Stallone, despite hating frivolities like birthday robots and water conservation laws, once loved a life-size nude mannequin version of himself of Demolition Man so much he used duplicates of it to decorate Planet Hollywood restaurants around the world. With a businessman's keen eye for movie-themed dining decor, Stallone understood that his costumers needed to be able to gaze up at his contorted face, latex body locked in a twisted half-crouch pose as they ate. As you mentioned, Kyle. Well, with the fall of Planet Hollywood, these frozen Stallones disappeared along with the restaurants, vanishing into the cryogenic mist of time, never to be seen again until now, that is, thanks to the discovery of one bedraggled sly mannequin by an Australian antique hunter. And this was in an antique store in Katoomba in
the Blue Mountains, which is above Sydney.
Okay. New South Wales, Bellingham. So it's just outside of Sydney. Have you been to this city? Do you know where this is?
Oh, I know it very well. Well, my parents' first house when they got married was in Katoomba, literally on the cliff face of the Blue Mountains. And it's a beautiful range of mountains, which it's got a whole city to itself right on top. It's like the Australian version of Machu Picchu. It's amazing. But once you get up there, there's a lot of people dealing in arts and antiques and stuff like that up there. So I'm not surprised that somebody up there is, because you got to have money to live up there.
Well, enticed by this discovery, a Reddit user visited the shop to take pictures with the taxidermied Stallone and learned that it was on sale for 6,000 Australian. Incredibly, neither the Reddit user nor Bellingham wanted to drop thousands on bringing the prop into their home. For her part, Bellingham gave joking reasons for passing on the mannequin, saying, quote, it wouldn't fit between the kids, car seat, or the journey home. And that we already had a sex doll for our dungeon that didn't cost me $6,000. So I'm guessing it's still there. I haven't heard any updates unless someone did go in there and stuff.
Look at his face.
I know, right? I had to cut out the bottom part of what that actually said with the face. It says, "What the F is this?" But guys, let's get into the cast here. We are talking about Sylvester Stallone here for Demolition Man. Directed by Marco Brambilla, of course. But I want to kind of get you guys on Sylvester Stallone portraying John Spartan. Kyle, I want to start with you.
it's kind of interesting here because this is again, Stallone was in this place of where he was going back to what he knew best. He had tried some stuff outside of the box, and it really didn't work. John Spartan is classic Stallone hero, big, bad, bold, and doesn't give a shit. And it's everything one that's perfect for the type of film this is. But I mean, if you think about it, when the time he's doing this, he does this. Shortly thereafter, he does Judge Dredd. He's getting back into a familiar territory with himself. He had Gabe Walker from Cliffhanger before this, so it's prime time Stallone badassery. And
I just thought of something, Kyle. You mentioned all of those kind of stinkers that he had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was doing these comedies, and I just realized he is funny in this film, so maybe those comedies kind of helped him prep for this to the type of funny side that he was able to do with this.
Well, I think this was a time too, because even you look at this, you look at Judge Dredd, and you have Rob Schneider in both films. Stallone was looking to have comedy, a little bit more comedy, even in his hardcore action movies. And you could tell this has its silliness. Judge Dredd has its silliness.
Because we got a taste of that in Tango and Cash, which came out in December of '89, which I always famously called the last great '80s action film, because literally it was the last action film of the. I've talked to you about this, Adam, when we covered Tango and Cash.
It's true. It's true.
You know that. So yeah, I think you got prime for that. Adam, what are your thoughts on Stallone?
Real quick, Kev.
Well,
there was one more thing I want to point out, because I think that there's aspects of this film that were very heavily influenced by one of the movies you see a poster for hanging in this film, Lethal Weapon 3 and the Lethal Weapon series, with its punchlines and back and forth banter and kind of a little bit of a comedy side to it. So I just always felt that was kind of interesting that you have that Lethal Weapon 3 poster hanging in Sandra Bullock character's office, and it's very much influencing this film.
It's true. Good point. Adam, your thoughts on Sylvester Stallone?
Well, you've touched on a couple of things there, Kyle, as well. Obviously, the big thing that he's done is realize that straight up comedy is not for him. But I think he's taken a back step and realized what did work in 1989. Yes, the last great action film of the 80s. And still, I think playing to what he plays well, playing off people as an actor. Regardless of action movie, regardless of comedy, he needs good actors around him for him to be able to relate. Rocky, perfect example with Rocky. He's playing off, Paulie and obviously Talia Shire, and obviously too, Mick. Those characters are so strong in themselves they could have a film themselves. That's the sort of characters and actors that he needs to excel, right? So in this, he's a little bit like Kurt Russell was in Tango and Cash. He's got something like, Kurt Russell, well, in this case, Simon Phoenix, played by Wesley, such an amazing actor by himself. And then all the camaraderie, this cast, that's how he's doing. And he's literally just playing the Italian Stallion for the next 10 movies that he does. He's doing exactly, maybe a bit more of a brain than the Italian Stallion, maybe. But I think the key is he found a formula within this one and Cliffhanger, and he's sticking to that. He knows what is going to work. And I do believe it's from watching how Arnold did the same freaking thing.
That's a great point. And I think that he obviously he has acting chops. We saw that in Rocky. But then he kind of goes to like the silent hero guy with Rambo, and he does some other stuff as well. But I think that, he really was kind of to do comedy and to do comedy well. That's tough. That takes a good actor to do that as well. And one of my biggest pet peeves about Leonardo DiCaprio is that he's never gone that direction before. In the movie Don't Look Up, which is a comedy, he plays a straight man. The funniest role he's had is Wolf of Wall Street. But, I like it when actors will do both. And I think that for him, like Copland, he was really good in that dramatic role.
Oh, hell yeah.
But you mentioned that, and one of his famous quotes that I always remember, and it came out when he was doing his run when he first started doing the Expendable films, was he says, "I give the audiences what they want. I know what they want from me. And they want him to be Sylvester Stallone. They want him to be the hero. They want him to kick ass, shoot guns, whatever it is." And so he's kind of been more doing that lately, which I'm happy that he's still doing. but he's in. What I really liked about Demolition Man with him was that you really saw him, as you mentioned, Adam. He plays off well with his cast members. Whether it's the villain with Simon Phoenix or Leonie Huxley.
Liana Huxley.
Yeah, thank you. Liana Huxley, yeah. And the rest of the cast. And that's another thing that I want to kind of dive into now is the rest of the cast, guys. Kyle, yeah, you got something?
Well, no, you were talking about the rest of the cast. There's something I want to say here before about the rest of the cast, because we listened to another podcast, the Rewatchables, and one of their categories is that guy. And at this time in this film, outside of Wesley, Sylvester, and probably Dennis Leary, this is a great flash at that time period of a bunch of actors who are in that guy role before they became who they were. You've got Benjamin Bratt. You've got but you just got I'm going down the
Rob Schneider.
Bill
Sandra
Cobb.
Bullock.
Yeah, Sandra Bullock. Dan Cortez.
Jack Black.
Yeah. Carlton Wilborn. You have a Jesse Ventura grief in this one. But there's a lot of that guys in there that are, but they're those kind of that guys that are always really good actors, and you know them as soon as you see them, which adds complimentary to the true real stars of this film, which are, I think, Stallone, Snipes, and Dennis Leary.
It's a good point. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the cast that we have here. As you guys mentioned, we have Dennis Leary, of course, Benjamin Bratt, Sandra Bullock, and Simon Phoenix, of course, Wesley Snipes. He's up and coming at this time. And I think now I know why Rob Schneider was in Judge Dredd. Obviously made an impact here. And then, of course, I didn't know this, but there's a young Jack Black in the background as one of the underground guys, the Edgar Friendly group. But we had a pretty good group of actors here. Here's a picture of them visiting Edgar Friendly's underground here. And then, of course, we got the cops as well. Bunton, is that the guy that plays the main police guy? What's
Bob
that?
Gunton.
Bob Gunton. Of course, a lot of people know him, of course, from Shawshank Redemption as the head warden here. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the rest of the cast. Adam, start with you.
Look, I think the big one for me is the surprise of people like, Rob Schneider, who would go on to obviously, greater things himself. Dennis Leary, man, he's great. I found Dennis Leary also in The Ref, and that's what was really for me, pulling me into his work before even that song that we all know that he did. I think, and I just found him hilarious. But he's such a good actor in The Ref. Again, I think it's one we should cover one day, guys. It's quite a good movie. But also Sandra Bullock.
Is that like a holiday movie? Is it during Christmas?
Christmas Day, Christmas one where Kevin Spacey's family's held hostage by basically him, and everything goes haywire. Yeah, that's right. Great film, but I think you've got a great cast here, and the fact that we've got Jesse Ventura in a small part. Toshishiro Obata, the great sword master, is in this as well. Obviously known as Tatsu in the Turtles. You got some great background people that don't really get a lot of time in this one, but those that do really excel. I mean, I even like the little bits in the underworld, if you like, of San Angeles, where we meet the burger chef and all that sort of stuff.
I'm going to go back to that.
Meant to be a bigger part, like
the rat burger.
So rat burger. Yeah. It's the rat, and I just love that because it's showing all the types of society. This is quite a good bit of world building here.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Kyle, any more comments on the cast?
Well, I want to talk about Dennis Leary just for a second here, because 1993 is a very interesting year, because this is when Hollywood decided we got something in Dennis Leary, because here is his just the films he made in 1993. Loaded Weapon 1, National Lampoon. The Sandlot. Who's the Man? A movie called Gunman. Demolition Man. Judgment Night. And then his first
hold on. I don't want you to just roll over Gunman real quick here, because that stars Mario Van Peebles and Christophe Lambert, and he's the main villain, and Patrick Stewart is in that movie.
Okay, so Gunman comes up. And then his first film in 1994, we were just talking about, is The Ref. Yeah. So this is when Hollywood really discovered Dennis Leary and was really kind of putting him through the ringer and testing him out. It's like, is he a movie star or not? And he obviously proved that he is. But this was kind of like the early peak of Dennis Leary, the first peak of Dennis Leary in Hollywood.
It's a good point. Yeah.
So, and of course, obviously Wesley Snipes up and coming. He's got this. New Jack City's around this time. He's getting ready. This eventually leads into him getting Blade, with them seeing him and he starts doing all those little bit of action movies like Drop Zone and Passenger 57 and things like that. So this is really Wesley. This is like right at the beginning of an apex for a lot of these guys. I think though of all of them, the most crazy one is seeing Benjamin Bratt in this film and how he looks. How skinny he is in this film and nerdy. And then you see him like just a few years later. It's like, that's the same person.
And he doesn't know who Pancho Villa is. All right, guys, I have to go into this because this is a lot of fun. I found a couple of articles here and I also added in one for myself. Demolition Man predictions. Now, before I go into the prediction, guys, I did want to mention that I touched on earlier. I remember when Demolition Man, people laughed at it. It was a joke movie. You didn't talk about it. It was like, oh yeah, Demolition Man, that movie sucked. I remember because people were talking about it. People were saying about it. It was like one of those really silly films. This was in like the, late 90s, even early 2000s. I started, and I was almost on that for a little bit. I was kind of like getting jaded, but then I started rewatching it and I was rewatching it in secret. No one want to talk about it. And then around 2005, 2007, I started proudly saying Demolition Man is awesome. And then technology started happening. Things started happening in the real world. People started going back and revisiting this film because Demolition Man made some predictions of the future. And we're going to talk about this one. I added virtual sex, guys. Computer came about. Even Bud Bundy did a virtual sex episode. I don't know if you guys remember that Married with Children episode or not. Virtual reality started happening. Kyle, you're very quiet. Say something.
No, I'm just thinking if I'm sitting in front of Sandra Bullock like that, it ain't nothing gonna be virtual.
I know. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over the list I have here. I have about, I think, 10 or 12 of them here. Okay, so here we go. All right. So virtual sex. Okay, we have a slide up showing what was happening with John Spartan, caught off guard. Okay. All right. Next, we had no handshaking. Okay. The spread of disease. What happened during COVID? All right. Okay.
I'm gonna go a little sooner than that because Howie Mandel kind of got that rolling when he was doing the game show because everybody knew what a germophobia was. So it was the fist pound.
Great point there, Kyle. He was the first like celebrity to really kind of show that, right?
Yeah.
We also had no toilet paper. What happened during the early parts of COVID? People were hoarding toilet paper.
That $400 roll on eBay, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Okay. Next, we had prediction of Arnie's political career. Now, he may not have become president, but dude became governor of California.
The governor.
He's getting back into movies now. Yeah. But, the 61st Amendment is still out there. Could be changed.
I'm just wondering, how much did this movie actually maybe inspire some of that?
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Possibly. The rise of video calling. It's not an early 90s action movie without some gratuitous nudity. Now, the picture I have up here doesn't actually show the nudity. This is when she covers herself. But she makes basically a wrong video phone call. But as we know, video calling is a thing now. Okay. Next we have, there you go. Next we have self-driving cars. All right. That's a thing now. Thank you, Google. Demolition Man did it first. And Taco Bell winning the franchise wars. Okay. Now, Taco Bell is still around. But in the film, the only restaurants is Taco Bell. They won the mysterious franchise wars that only one chain left standing. While Taco Bell has not won the wars yet, they have come up with
Pizza Hut.
They have come up with the waffle taco breakfast with technology that advanced. No one can stand before them.
No, Kevin. Here is the truth about Taco Bell. We always talk about only cockroaches and Twinkies will survive the nuclear holocaust. No, the meat in Taco Bell tacos will also survive the nuclear holocaust because it is already nuclear.
The Taco Bell sauce, the mild, the regular and the mild and the hot, that's when you found out that you could drop like a dirty penny in that thing, let it sit overnight, it'll clean it up. I love how we have the change my mind meme guy, and his said COVID-19 will be the cause of the franchise wars mentioned in Demolition Man that leads to all restaurants being Taco Bell. All right, next we have Wesley Snipes is a hardened criminal. Did you know his name is Monroe Hutchin? Okay, so he didn't lead a gang of hardened criminals and murder a school bus full of children, but he did do a pretty serious tax invasion. He had prison sentence and everything. Admittedly, it was not a crowd prison, but still. And then we had teleconferences, guys. Now, this was done kind of cool here. We see this as well in the film. Kyle, your thoughts? You had a comment?
I was just going to say, you may do a 187, but nothing is worse than messing with the IRS.
Yes. All right. Still, I got some more here. We have Biometrics. Who needs an iPad when you have a wonderful little device in your hand? It's perfect for the cryo prison warden on the go. And if you look on the internet, it's there. And then we also have voice activated appliances, guys. And if you remember in this one here, we've got the funny you've been fined from the verbal morality code. That's how he gets his toilet paper. Voice activated appliance as well. And we have YouTube instruction videos where a cop needed a video on how to handle the maniac because he responded with a scornful remark.
So my question is this: who tells the future better? Star Trek, Demolition Man, or The Simpsons?
Kyle. Well said. That is a good one. Oh my God. Oh, that is a good discussion. Wow.
My leaning is still The Simpsons, but
that's a good call there. Simpsons, yeah. But anyway, Mr. Molded One, I wanted to get your thoughts on the future predictions that Demolition Man made.
It's pretty close. I think the biggest one they have is, how political correctness has just gone absolutely out the freaking window. Like, it's just huge. And it's gone past what they predicted. Now we're in this stage where it's almost, pushing to the points of, dictatorial sort of behavior by people. So, yeah, I think it's definitely predicted very close to what things are, even though at the same time, we may not have, Edgar Friendlies in the world. We may not have Dr. Cocteau, but we certainly have political people like that out there and people pushing agendas. And, it's exactly what the movie predicted.
Yep. Well said. Okay, guys. This movie made money. I'm not going to get into all that, though. It did debut at number 1, by the way, which is very cool. And MTV, by the way, held a competition. I did want to mention this.
I remember that.
To promote the film with MTV sports presenter Dan Cortez as a host, because he stars in the film in attendance. Do you remember that, Kyle? You said, what do you remember?
No, I remember that MTV contest because they did it. It was like a whole production. They did this whole like live show and everything like that when it happened. And of course, Dan Cortez at the time was just everywhere.
Okay. Just quick side story. I was a little disappointed I didn't get a chance to meet him because he was doing a show on MTV called MTV Sports, which was the first sports show of its kind because it showed extreme sports before X Sports, X whatever it was that they do now. And I actually got in on one and I was hoping to meet him because my girlfriend at the time was working for Slayer's management and they invited all these heavy metal stars to get together in Corona, California for a paintball tournament. And I actually got to participate in that because I had long hair at the time. I got to meet Gene Simmons, guys from Testament, Anthrax, Slayer. It was really cool. But Dan Cortez did not show up. He just kind of mentioned it, and they showed it on MTV Sports. But I did get on TV briefly, so that was kind of cool. Okay, before we get into the three seashells, guys, we're going to talk about that next. I just want to get your guys' favorite scenes and moments in the film. Mr. Mulliton, tell me. What's yours?
My favorite scenes are literally not just the action scenes. You know, there's some great scenes there, but you know, the pop culture ones. So going down as far as like going down, getting a rat burger. I thought that was great. And it's that Rip Van Winkle, as they say, even in the movie, it's that aspect of a man out of time. You know, like Captain America or even Back to the Future. You're somebody that's not in that period and you're sort of trying to soak it all in. And they're the moments that I like the most in this movie.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to jump on that in a second here. But Kyle, I wanted to get your thoughts, your favorite scenes or moments in the film.
Well, there's some great action sequences because it's a Stallone movie with Wesley Snipes. But to me, the best moments are, I agree with Adam. I mean, one of my favorite scenes is when Wesley Snipes, Simon Felix first breaks out of jail. And they're all freaking out. We're like, we're police officers. We're not trained to handle this kind of
violence. That's a good point.
But also just like, you know, Wesley Snipes, as he's figuring out, he's been pre-programmed with all this stuff. And just what makes this movie work is Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone kind of just being left to cook. You know, they're not, they were given a script, but they loosely followed the script. They were allowed to improvise. And it's those things that make it magical. And in Stallone's case, because of it's the fish out of water and everything, and the comments they allow him to make and just kind of shoot from the hip with some of this stuff, it works so well. And that's what makes this movie fun. And that's what makes this movie kind of a standout rewatchable. It's not the action scenes. It's the fish out of water scenes.
Yes. That's a great point, Kyle. One of my, I've got a lot, and I think you touched on it there, Adam, is the pop culture references in this. Because what's really cool about it is a lot of it had just recently happened. And I love Lelina Huxley is one of my favorite characters in this, not just because she's gorgeous and Sandra Bullock is awesome in this, but she's kind of us, basically, as if we were transported magically into the future. And I love the fact that she loves old pop culture. I love the scene when Benjamin Bratt's character follows her into her office after she gets chastised by her boss about whatever it was. And you look at all the stuff in her room, and I have scoured that room, and there's a lot of fun stuff in there, including the Lethal Weapon 3 poster, or was it 2? Lethal Weapon 3, I think. Yeah. And, but there's also, just cause I'm a fan, there's an actual Raiders helmet behind her in there as well. There's a bunch of other fun stuff in there, but I like to, I think Simon Phoenix, when he's by himself, getting into trouble is some of the funnest things. And I love when he goes into gun shopping, basically. He gets so excited about the 20th century, 19th century guns, and he gets some and he goes, wait a minute, this is the future. Where's all the phaser guns, and then he finds one of those. But I think the action scenes are fun, but I think the moments between the characters and the joking and meeting Edgar Friendly for the first time and seeing Dennis Leary do his Dennis Leary stuff, and talk about all of the stuff that his character hates, but it's stuff that's actually happening at that time, but spun around during this thing. I love the costumes. I love the futuristic cars, which we'll get into as well. But yeah, there's so much I really enjoy about this film. And I kind of, every now and then when I watch this movie again, I'll kind of discover something new I didn't really pay attention to. So, but guys, let's talk about the three seashells. This is always brought up, three seashells. He needs to use the bathroom, and they joke, oh, he doesn't know about the three seashells. And this is one of the topics that's always brought up. And I found a couple articles here, and I have some pictures. So I'm going to forgive me. One of them's not graphic, but these are artist interpretations of the three seashells, and I'll show those things. And I also have the three seashells behind me. That is hanging up in my bathroom. I decided to bring it here though and show it to you guys. And I also have the Demolition Man. Got to show this to you guys real quick. The Demolition Man toiletry set. You know how to use them. And that's a joke because, well, we really, really don't, do we? Or will we know after this podcast? So I found a couple articles here. Demolition Man's future revealed that three seashells have replaced toilet paper. Here's how they supposedly function. How to use the restroom in 2032 presented Demolition Man has haunted filmgoers since the seashells were presented. So how do the three seashells work? In Demolition Man, Stallone plays John Spartan. He has to figure out how to use them. And it's left out there as kind of a joke, guys. And I think if you ask the filmmakers, it's done as a joke. Adam, I need to go to you real quick. Do they address this in the audio commentary?
No, they vaguely talk about it, but it is more about the guess that, we have to try and figure out we're in on the joke. And of course, the butt of the joke is Spartan not knowing how to use them.
The three seashells are a gross world-building mechanism. In the years since its release, many have speculated on how the seashells actually work, much like Demolition Man's contactless high five. Okay. Demolition Man screenwriter Daniel Waters was protective of the truth behind the Demolition Man seashells. Stallone himself revealed how they work in a 2006 interview via Ain't It Cool News. He explained that a writer told him, "You'll hold two seashells like chopsticks, pull gently, and scrape what's left with the third."
Oh,
guys. Yeah, here's some artistic stuff that's going on here, and you can find these on the internet. One of them, it looks like it's kind of a generation field. You got two by your thighs, and one guy's kind of holding it towards his crotch. Yes, I went there. Hey, we got to talk about it, guys.
Well, Kevin, I feel then this is an appropriate time to tell a quick story.
Okay,
I actually had the three seashells installed where I used to live, but I had a problem. They had crabs.
Oh my God.
I had to return them.
So Sandra Bullock explained the three seashells. Apparently, Stallone wasn't the only one. Sandra Bullock was asked about the mystery behind the three seashells via MTV, and she gave her own take on it. Suggest there's several processes. You have number one, and you have number two, and then you have the cleanup. Bullock even offered some good-hearted teasing to the interviewer who posed the question, saying, "It was obvious to me when I read it. I thought you were an intelligent man, but obviously not." Though Bullock stars in the Lost City, that was a recent interview, by the way, and other hits, she can't escape the infamy of the Demolition Man three seashells. Why the three seashells made it into Demolition Man? The three seashells aren't central to the plot of the story at all. They've been one of the most widely discussed elements in the movie, according to fan via Reddit. Screenwriter Daniel Waters addressed this mystery at a Q&A. Though he didn't reveal the secret behind the shells, he explained how he conceived the idea, feeling that bathroom of the future would have some kind of unique features. Then he called a writer friend for inspiration who revealed that kept the seashells in his bathroom as decoration. Waters, though he didn't reveal how to truly use the three seashells in Demolition Man, did detail how he came up with the idea and gave more information about the call with his screenwriter friend. The story is totally in keeping with the ridiculousness of the Demolition Man as a movie. Waters explained at a Q&A saying, "I called my buddy, another screenwriter across town, and asked him if he had any ideas." Waters added, "Ironically enough, the guy was taking a dump when he answered the phone, looking around his bathroom and said, 'I have a bag of seashells on my toilet as decorations.' He says, 'Okay, I'll make something out of that.'" While seashells might be common decorative item in bathrooms, replacing toilet paper within the three seashells in Demolition Man is quite a jump. However, the story just further adds to the mystery and all but confirms the seashell's purpose, but still doesn't explain how they are used. So, Kyle, I want to ask you, I think the fun part of the three seashells is that we don't really know We have to speculate. Obviously, we saw a silly description of how maybe it was used. Your thoughts on the three seashells?
It's one of those things that, with no true explanation, it's morbid curiosity. It caught on because people wanted in on the joke and they wanted an answer. It maybe died off for a little while, and then the internet, being the internet, brought it back. And it's one of those. It's called Robert Stack because it's one of the biggest unsolved mysteries in Hollywood lore. How do the three seashells work?
This is one of the more famous pictures I found. Someone actually has put it in a toilet here, which I think is great. I have this hanging up in there. My dad hasn't really asked me about it. It's just there. Adam, your thoughts on the three seashells?
Oh, it's exactly what it is. It's a running gag which people will remember the movie for. That's what it's done for. There's no answer needed, and there's no answer going to be given, because if they do answer it, it kills the mystery. The mystery is what keeps bringing people back.
Well, I figured, being Demolition Man, it's always brought up. I share memes all the time when I can. It's one of those things that's made the movie famous. So yeah, it's just kind of a joke, guys, but we're going to leave it up there to figure out how it really, really works. Hopefully it's not like that graphic thing where you actually use it as chopsticks. Hopefully they're self-cleaning as well. All right, guys. One of the most important things as a video nerd, I've always wanted a special edition of this film. I've wanted the cut scenes to be put back in it. I would love a 4K. There's rumors. We'll see. But there is something important that was cut from the original film. John Spartan had a daughter that was in the film. It's mentioned in the film. We know that. But apparently a cut scene, Spartan is introduced to Kate where he learns she is his daughter. The above plot plus other scenes that didn't make the final film were cut because Warner Brothers wanted a much shorter runtime. It comes in about an hour and 55 minutes. So whatever happened to John Spartan's daughter? Well, the biggest problem, Demolition Man, is what happened to his family. We know that his wife died. Spartan asked, I had a wife. What happened to my wife? Huxley responds, her light was extinguished in the big one of 2010. Big earthquake, obviously. She died in the earthquake. Spartan, already devastated before he asked a question, asked another. I had a daughter. What happened to her? At this point, Chief George Earl interrupts with his amazing bedside manner. John Spartan, I am chief police, so on and so forth. So we really don't get to go into that. And I think Huxley offers, if I remember correctly, to do that, but he says no. So when you watch the scene when he's in the underground where Edgar Friendly is, and Simon Phoenix and his gang members start to attack, he is seen protecting a woman here. That is this woman here. You can see it a little bit better in some other scenes, but this is the only screenshot I could find for this, though. Do you think they made the right decision cutting that out? Would it have been interesting to see John Spartan's daughter, him actually have someone to, reconnect with in the future? What are your thoughts on that, Adam?
I think it's not essential to the plot. I think, it's great to have it in there, but we're at a time when a lot of those action movies were 90 minutes or just over 100 minutes, something like that. So I'm not surprised that they cut that out. You can actually read about the entire scene and some of the other lead up to it in the paperback. The actual paperback gives you a full layout of it in the novel. So, look, it's not essential. It's certainly not going to drive the plot forward, but you get at least a sense of, the loss, if you like, of time that John Spartan's gone through, and as anyone would through if we were thrown to the future and lost all our loved ones.
Right. Yeah. Kyle, your thoughts on the cut scene of his daughter?
So a couple of things here. First and foremost, you got to consider that, especially this type of movie, not only are they conscious of time, they are conscious of time because they are conscious of a VHS release. And we all know, if we're VHS heads from the time, that 2-hour runtime was the magic number to get the best quality VHS out there. So you weren't going. Then the advent of DVD, and all of a sudden, all these extra features and scenes and plot lines start coming up in this. In this case, I think what the idea ended up being was, this is a great plot line, but we'll save it for a sequel. And unfortunately, because of what happened with Demolition Man, it didn't get a sequel because I think this is too big of a plot line just to kind of have it be a small subplot. This is a major character that would have a serious effect on John Spartan. I think this is something you follow up with a sequel on it instead of and let Demolition Man be what it was, which was the head-to-head matchup between John Spartan and Simon Phoenix.
That's a good point, Kyle. That running time definitely is. Otherwise, then you're buying a two VHS, double thing going on here. So good segue. Thank you for that, Kyle. There was rumblings of having a Demolition Man 2 sequel for quite a while. It fired up a little bit more recently. And personally, I would have loved to have seen him reconnect with his daughter. It would have been nice to have that thing, but Adam's right, though. It's not crucial to the story. I would have liked to have just seen, it would have been weird because she would be 50-ish, and he's like, if not younger, around that same age. So it would have been weird, but I think it would have been interesting. But speaking of, there was rumors that a certain Oscar winner would probably have played. This is about 4 years ago. That Meryl Streep was possibly in talks for the sequel, and she would play the daughter of John Spartan. What do you think, Adam?
She's got the go from me, mate. She's fantastic.
Yeah, she is. What about you, Kyle?
I think she'd do it because I think she'd also be wanting to work with Stallone at that time too. So, but yeah, I mean, she has the gumption to do action, and she has the acting chops to be fantastic in the role.
Yeah, I hope that I know that Sylvester Stallone would love to do a sequel to this, and I don't think it's still too late because there's a lot of stuff that you could do with him being older now. Maybe he's chief of police. Who knows? That would have been kind of interesting. You could still get several of the actors back, and maybe there's a new threat. Who knows? But it would be nice to kind of have that role going forward. I want to get you guys' quick little. Do you have a favorite quote in the film? I have one, but I was wondering if you guys had one. Adam?
I think my goes back to the seashells, and it's Rob Schneider. He doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells.
That's a good one.
I love it.
My favorite is the flashback when John Spartan rescued a girl, and a TV reporter goes, "How can you justify destroying a $7 million mini mall to rescue a girl whose ransom was only $25,000?" The logo goes, "F you, lady," and John goes, good answer."
There is actually a quote in this film by Bill Cobb, who plays one of the African American gentlemen who's in the police headquarters that knows about Simon Phoenix and kind of giving them the history lesson. And they talk about John Spartan. He says, "You've got an old time criminal and you need an old time cop to get him."
Yeah. I love that guy. That was a good one. Good one, Kyle. Okay, guys, because we have Mr. Lethal Mullet on here, the expert in action films, I love to always bring up guns. And there's a lot of really great weaponry in this. I didn't look at it closely enough, but I like the one that Edgar Friendly has. It looks like a 2-barreled, like short shotgun thing that he has. But I want to talk about this phaser rifle thing here, which Mr. Phoenix finally finds. And basically, it's a Heckler & Koch G11 K1 that is souped up basically here. The magnetic accelerator rifle. During the museum shootout, Phoenix wonders, wait a minute, this is the future. Where are all them phaser guns? So he finds a futuristic particle beam gun, which is called the magnetic accelerator. The rifle in reality appears to be a Heckler & Koch G11 fitted with a laser sight and other embellishments. Since the actual G11 was the experimental stage at the time, the rifle was actually a mock-up cast from a real G11 prototype that was briefly loaned to the production. And what I find funny, though, is like there's a recharge wait time on this guy. But Adam, what are your thoughts on the phaser rifle?
Look, I think it serves its purpose. They needed a high-tech gun, and Heckler & Koch have always looked very, very futuristic. The real weapon itself is actually a prototype for a caseless round that was produced by the company. And the idea was to basically have a bullet without the brass and everything like that, literally just the round itself. And this thing would have enough propellant in the back of it to shoot the round without the gunpowder. And that's the whole idea of this weapon. But I think the fact that they've gone this sort of really futuristic route that we'd see louder them do with G36 and other rifles, with even the way the scope's designed as a carry handle almost. Those sorts of things were all in play with this one too. But I think for this, it works really well. And I love the special effect they did with the firing of the magnetic accelerator.
Yeah, it looked devastating once he got it firing. Kyle, any thoughts on the weaponry?
It's all great weaponry, but again, one of the best moments in the film is when Wesley's going through all the weapons. He's like, it's like all his old friends, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I'm in the future. Where's the laser gun?"
When he's looking at all the weapons and he decides to throw that guy through the window, I'm like going, "Oh, that's some good stuff there." Especially the short-barreled shotgun that he gets too, which is very effective. I love that one. All right. Another thing that's really cool about this film, guys. And again, if you're listening to this podcast, make sure you check out the video because I'm showing some fun slides here. Is the cars, the futuristic cars, guys. General Motors provided the production team with 18 concept vehicles, including the ultralight, with more than 20 fiberglass replicas of the ultralight were produced to portray civilian and SAPD patrol vehicles for the film. After filming had completed, the remaining ultralights were returned to Michigan as part of the concept vehicle fleet, which is pretty cool. I would have definitely taken some of those in. That's one of the very interesting things about this movie, guys, is they didn't just like have one super like futuristic car. They had the one that Spartan Phoenix drives here in the bottom left, that kind of little bullet-shaped vehicle with 3 wheels. You get actual police cars. You saw civilians using these. This is one of the coolest things I love about this film is the look of these futuristic cars. Because Kyle, they look futuristic, man.
I just want to mark it at about the 106 mark. It was the first time Kevin said Spartan Phoenix instead of Simon Phoenix.
Oh, I did say Spartan Phoenix, didn't I? That is my Twitter handle. That is my X handle. That is my social media handle. Thank you, Kyle, for calling me out there. But you're absolutely right.
Well, I had Vegas. I had over/under Vegas odds on it. So,
boys, don't you think that these look like Teslas? They actually do look pretty damn decent futuristic vehicles. Because guess what? Tesla look like that. The Mark 1 Tesla and the 3.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say
Demolition Man did it first. Elon.
I was going to say, isn't it one of the vehicles that are What a Piece of Junk host Scott Botman drives?
Why did he get a Tesla?
He's got a
he's got one, hasn't he? Yeah, he's got a rechargeable.
Car.
Hold on, you guys are both talking. Kyle, what'd you say?
I said Scott does have an electric car.
Okay, gotcha. Your thoughts, Kyle, on these cars?
They're very cool designs. They fit really well for the futuristic at the time, and I agree with Adam. There's especially I think the patrol car is a very much early idea for the Tesla.
Yeah,
you look at it, it's a little bit more sleek. It has that, but again,
we got the gull wing doors, which are very cool.
And, this is one of the things you didn't have on the list was the electric car.
Yeah,
it's self-driving cars, but the electric car itself in itself
Great
too,
point.
or whatever it was, the gel that they use to power these things.
Does this put Demolition Man past the Simpsons now?
No, not and probably the Simpsons has called too many crazy presidential things, so I don't want to make them too angry.
Oh God, yeah, good stuff here, guys. Okay, so next we have, this is one of my favorite parts of the car. I love how Lelina Huxley knows what this is. The 1972 Oldsmobile 442 Demolition Man. I love that we get the hot rod in here. I love the choice of this car, but more importantly, guys. Oh, look at that.
Oh, you do have the car.
Toy, buddy. Check it out. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. This was one of I had to have toys. This is the toy that you can get for the Demolition Man. And we'll get into toys a little bit more in just a second. But I had to have the car. The only thing I didn't like about the car, though, is when you open up the hood, I hid the gigantic, here it is, the gigantic weapon this thing has. I can't even get out of the trunk. Look at this thing. It's supposed to go like right here on the I don't know.
Can I make a comment here about this, Kevin? Because you showed us some of the figures from earlier. This car is largely disproportionate to the actual action figures.
No, hold on. Okay, see, like the hood just came off. By the way, you're supposed to. When you hit that button, it pops the hood off and the rest of the stuff. To show that to you there.
Don't give Kevin buttons. Things happen.
But look, you can actually fit the figures in here, Kyle. See, look at that. Look at that. You can. I'm just not bending him in there to get in there, but you can do that. See, so yeah. Now, I have to mention, guys, I'm not a fan of a lot of the other toys in here, but the car is very, very cool. Show these pictures we have of the toys. I love this car. It's probably the best toy here. But here's the action figures, guys.
These are rough.
They had some weird versions of John Spartan and Simon Phoenix that we never saw in the movie. Demolition Man figures and vehicles were released in 1993, produced by Mattel. The toys are based on the new adventures of He-Man style figures. In addition to 7 action figure, the set included a car, the red convertible called the Fast Blast 442, an airplane bowler jet, and a missile shooter toy gun. Leanna Huxley was not included in the toy line, guys. Why? That makes me sad, actually.
Because at that time, girl figures really did not sell.
Yes, this is true. Kyle, your thoughts on the toys? You have a long history in toys. You know Star Wars, G.I. Joe, He-Man. Your thoughts on these?
These are a byproduct of the 80s and 90s when it comes to figures outside of Star Wars that are based off of like one-shot movie, that aren't based off of a long line movie. They have no articulation. They are big, they are bulky, and they are crappy. I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, look at
you go back to the history of Stallone toys in the 80s. You've got that very rough Rambo line. Similar type things include the Chuck Norris and his Karate Commandos line, the Karate Kid line. These were rough, and these were not.
Look at the handholds. It's like you just stick the gun in the handholds like that. It's pretty bad.
Let me put it this way: we weren't into the McFarlane toy realm of articulation and actual look yet.
I mean, seriously. By the way, I think these things come out. I just don't want to do it. You turn it here, and the cannon, the car that comes with, they pop out. But I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that thing is so old that who knows what might happen.
One of my favorite toy collectibles, though. Adam, what are your thoughts on the toys?
Oh, look, it's straight up Mattel. Mattel were doing this with the He-Man line, obviously. Same thing. You get 29 versions of He-Man, and none of them are the ones you saw in the show. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's probably scuba diving Spartan there. There's probably skydiving Phoenix there, all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
I mean, it's nuts, but the car looks freaking awesome.
Yeah, let me show the picture a little widescreen there. I mean, look at some of these versions here. I have the Spartan Phoenix at the very top that has a gigantic gun, and he's like all in black outfit and stuff. But yeah, there's some silly looking figures here. Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. As we also know, there was a huge commercial push for this. There was a lot of stuff that came out when it came to products. And one of them is the Demolition Man Super Nintendo video game here. Kyle, I have seen videos on YouTube of this as Kyle does the face palm. Acclaimed Entertainment and Virgin Interactive released Demolition Man on various home video systems. The 16-bit versions were shooting games distributed by Acclaim. The 3DO version is a multi-genre game that incorporates full-motion video screens with both Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes reprising their roles as their characters in scenes that were filmed exclusively for the game. So that's interesting. Kyle, your thoughts on the game?
There was a time when video games based off of movies, I think, had the mantra, let's do the ET cartridge proud. Because there was a run of video games for movies that you could have swore they maybe spent 3 weeks in the lab on, threw it on a cartridge or threw it on a disc and said, here you go. And it's rough. And Demolition Man and Acclaim, those are two things. Movie cartridges and Acclaim, those are two things that just scream bad video game, run away, especially after.
I would love to find this, just the cartridge itself. I don't want to play it.
Oh, I've played it.
Oh, yeah? And?
Yeah, I played it and it stunk. It's bad.
One of the cool things I would love to have, this is like, if you were a billionaire and you had all the video games you could, is the pinball game. I've seen this. I've actually played this at a store before. It's very cool. In April 1994, Williams released a wide-body pinball game machine, Demolition Man, based on the film. It was designed by Dennis Nordman. The game features sound clips from the film as well as original speech by Stallone and Snipes. Kyle, you've played this, haven't you?
Yeah, I have actually played this machine. This is where Hollywood went wrong. They needed more pinball machines based off of movies. This is how you market a movie.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, because there's all theaters.
There's a cool combination of working pedals and movement, and then you would get a little digital readout sometimes if it got real fancy. It had a really cool like pictures and artwork on it. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is one of the things that's always baffled me. Back in the day when you would go to your local theater, they always had the video arcade machines in there. How they didn't have more movie-related pinball machines in your movie theaters is beyond me, because you talk about basic, simple cross promotion.
Yeah, that's true. Adam, you remember? Did you ever see this over there in Australia? Did they?
I haven't seen this pinball game, but I agree with Kyle. I mean, like, pinball game is one of the most simple things to put together. It's like a massive pop-up book with pedals, And what I love about it is that, come on, anyone can play them. It's literally been around since the 40s or 30s or whatever it is. Pinball's been around forever.
Longer than that. Yeah, you're right.
Probably even longer than that. Yeah. And the fact that, you tie it into something, you're basically putting visual elements in there that light up when you hit them and make sounds, have sound bites from the movies. I tell you what, there's a couple of good apps out there right now for iPhone and Android, which you can get, which have literally, there's a myriad of different franchises on there. But you can pick like Jaws. There's ones for Disney product. There's stuff for Star Wars. And they even have an Indiana Jones one. But I remember, 'cause I haven't played it for a bit. But the fact that you can do that digitally as well, why aren't they doing more of that now too? They're not doing much of it.
It's a good point. Kyle?
I just take one little side note, because greatest pinball movie of all time.
Greatest pinball movie of all time.
This should be pretty easy for any red-blooded American male.
Gosh, Kyle, I'm drawing a blank right now.
There's a movie out there called Tilt that had a young Brooke Shields in it.
What year did that come out in?
I want to say like 79, 80.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. I got to check that out.
That's one to hunt down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good call. All right. I did not know. I don't remember this. Of course, at the time, I wasn't diving deep into comics, guys, but we had a Demolition Man limited comic book adaptation of the film. A 4-part limited series comic adaptation was published by DC Comics starting in November of 1993, written by Gary Kahn and art by Rod Wiggum, with covers by Kevin McGuire. And then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Adam, novelization written by Robert Tyne. Of course, he was using the pseudonym Roger Osborne, was published in 1993. Kyle, I want to touch with you in the comics. Do you remember this?
This is at a time where both Marvel and Disney would both pitch and try to pick up movie. I mean, and this lasted for a long time. This goes back into the 80s, where Marvel and Disney would pick up the movie rights, or the studio was looking to sell the movie rights as a way to the comics, as a way for extra promotion and things like that. But what usually ends up happening with these comic book adaptions is that nobody of any real noteworthiness in comics want to do them. So they get down to like the C team of writers and artists, and they were usually not real good.
That's funny. Adam, you have read the novel. I have not, unless there's an audiobook version. I don't think I'll ever find it, be able to do that. But your thoughts on the novel?
Novel's great. Again, that was my first foot into this universe, and it was, a chance for the writer to really set up and navigate for us as, obviously the readers, and a foot into this world, and it builds up a little bit more of the background between Phoenix and, of course, Spartan, some of the stuff that they've had back in 96 before, of course, getting caught. And then, obviously, the world, too, that Dr. Cocteau's put together and how he sort of, I guess, corrupted his way to the top. Obviously, more with his daughter and stuff like that. I mean, if I could still have that novel here somewhere, I've definitely lost it. It's, that was a definite, out of all the merchandise, probably the thing to get.
I have a friend of mine that I do the G.I. Joe podcast with. He guests on him, and his name's Brad, and Brad Abraham, and he's an author as well. You can check out Brad Abraham, but he has a collection that's quite impressive that's behind him when he podcasts of all novel adaptations of films. And he's got quite a collection. And I got to ask him if he has Demolition Man, because I wonder if he does. All right. One of the things that I like about this film, and we were kind of messaging quickly back and forth with Adam, is the soundtrack. And most notably is the Demolition Man song, written and performed by Sting, courtesy of A&M Records. The title theme is a heavier remix of the song originally recorded by Grace Jones and written by Sting during his time as frontman for the Police. The song was first released in March of 81 as an advanced single from Jones's fifth album, Nightclubbing. Sting released an EP featuring this song and other live tracks entitled Demolition Man. And real quick, Elliot Goldenthal composed the score for the film. It was the second big Hollywood project after the Alien 3 score. Adam, your thoughts on Sting's Demolition Man?
Look, what I love is the original composition of it. It's a lot more funkier, a lot more bass driven. I mean, he's a bass player for starters. That's where his stuff starts from. Considering the Police was pretty much a reggae pop band, that's what they're predominantly known for, right?
Right.
But what's great is how he's driven that into this new one. Obviously, it's an older song, and it's the same name as the movie. So, I mean, who knows? That may have even influenced the title of the movie. Who knows? But great thing about it is he was able to bring a sort of a cybernetic, futuristic element into it with a bit more synth when he did the version.
And it's nice and rocking too. I like it. Yeah,
it's got a real rock and feel to it. I mean, you got to remember he's done a number of movie soundtracks as well. With songs. Didn't he do the Speed one? No, that was Billy Idol.
He did. He did one of the Lethal Weapon ones. I think it was Lethal Weapon 2 or 3.
3, yeah.
And it was I believe a duet with Clapton. I think it was.
It was. That's right. That was number one on everywhere in '93. That and the fact they all had mullets still. But what I loved about it was, the simplistic. I love his as a guitar player myself. I love the way that he writes everything around the rhythm section, around the bass, and I'm sure you can appreciate that. Believe it or not, folks, this is Stone Gossard.
Kyle, any thoughts of soundtrack?
Every major artist at some point goes through what we call the soundtrack phase. This was right in the middle of Sting's soundtrack phase, which I think probably hit its apex when he did the Three Musketeers song with Rod Stewart and Bryan Adams.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and that was a popular one too, because you obviously had Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves with Bryan Adams, and they were trying to recreate that. Didn't quite hit as big, but it was still very popular.
Yeah,
damn good song.
So, but there's many an artist in the 80s and early 90s who went through that soundtrack stage. Phil Collins did it several. Even Michael Jackson had a brief soundtrack run there where he did several songs for soundtrack. So it's something every artist goes through. I need to do a song for a movie.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's get into some movie trivia here. Fred Decker did uncredited rewrites on the script when he was brought on. The script began in the future when Spartan was introduced when was brought out of suspended animation. Decker suggested that the movie open with a prologue set in 1996 to showcase Spartan and Phoenix in their natural environment, saying that if you don't show Kansas, Oz isn't all that special. I thought this was an interesting move, and you had touched on this earlier, Adam, when they were talking about this in the audio commentary. It was nice to see them in 96. It was nice to see them fighting each other. Also seeing why John Spartan is called Demolition Man, but it kind of sets up, how Phoenix sets him up because they were all dead in the first place. So I thought that was a good idea. It was nice. I love the touch of seeing the famous, iconic Hollywood sign on fire. Because if the original sign hadn't gotten damaged many, many years ago, it would still be called Hollywood Land. A lot of people don't know that. Originally, the sign said Hollywood Land, and then land got damaged, and they just left Hollywood. So, yeah. Sylvester Stallone is on record of being pleased with this film, calling it a good action film ahead of its time. I think because it's gotten a lot of love as in the last maybe 15, 20 years, I don't know if they ever talked about doing a sequel prior to that. I think he's listened to the fandom base. Wouldn't you say, Kyle?
Yeah, I would think so. I think this is one of those things to where it's like the fans have spoken and he respects that.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone described his cryogenic freezing scene as probably the worst 5 hours I've ever had on movie sets. I was terrified. And Adam, they go into that on the audio commentary a little bit, and it was kind of dangerous.
Well, it's dangerous. Plus, he's got to go Starkus. He's got to go in the nud. So if you're walking around,
that's Adam's way of saying he was naked.
So if they're going commando, as we say in Australia, which means no pants, you've got to get around that. There's a shock of that, and I'm sure being an actor, they're all, it's all trying to keep calm and stuff like that while you've got all this crew watching you. But also the fact that you're sealed in this, I'm guessing, was plastic at the time to look like water, and they've got to fill it with water as well as before it was going to cool. So, it's quite dangerous.
Yeah. It's when you really look at it now and him like getting ready to lose air right before he gets frozen, it's pretty intense. So I got a picture here. Jackie Chan is hanging out with Mr. Sylvester Stallone in his future cop uniform. Sylvester Stallone wanted Simon Phoenix originally to be played by Jackie Chan. Chan declined the offer since Asian audiences gave negative feedback in the idea of action stars from either Hong Kong or Hollywood who had always played heroes would all of a sudden become typecast as villains. I want to get you guys' thoughts on this. Would this have been cool? What do you think, Kyle?
I don't see it working as much because one, the language barrier would have especially at that time with Jackie Chan.
Good point.
You need Simon Phoenix to be throwing out those one-liners, having that over the topness to it, and Jackie Chan would have just brought a totally different energy to this. And come on, let's be honest. Jackie Chan is never ever going to work as the bad guy. He's too lovable on screen.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I don't think it would have worked with Jackie Chan.
This is when, for me, he was starting to break in the States too. Rumble in the Bronx was coming out soon, and all this kind of stuff. He wasn't quite as big as he would be very soon. Adam, what are your thoughts? What do you think? Would it have been interesting to have him?
Look, I love Jackie Chan. I'm a huge fan of Jackie's work, and particularly with him being an honorary Aussie. His folks live in Canberra, so it's I've got nothing but love for the guy. Would it have been the right move? No. Hell no, because he's already built himself by this stage in the mid '80s, coming out of the Lucky Stars quartet, and obviously working with Ewan Bew and of course Sammo Hung. They all carved a career for themselves as good guys, as lovable, fun, good, goofy guys. Basically, the Abbott and Costello and Charlie Chaplin of their era, because it's all slapstick, Buster Keaton sort of stuff. To put him in a movie with Stallone where he's the bad guy would not have worked. And plus, he was not popular in the States at this time. People sure watched him on VHS, but Rumble in the Bronx was not for another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, good point. I agree. I'm glad they stuck with Mr. Simon Phoenix here. I think that when it comes to Wesley, he had a certain charisma. He can do this by himself. I love it when he's talking to himself, especially when he's like on the computer and stuff like that. I don't think Jackie could have done that, and he's just very charismatic. And this is still, people will probably say Blade is his best film. this one rivals it for me because he steals the
I
show.
agree.
He's on the video cover. I mean, you don't see it's those two guys. They have this relationship. It's not good, but he is on everything. He is iconic.
But considering like they dodged 2 bullets early on in conception, there's no way this movie would have been successful if it was Seagal and Van Damme.
Yep.
I mean, it would have been straight to video, and it probably would have been half the budget. I mean, who in their right mind? I mean, Joel Silver probably would have balked at it. I don't think he would have given money to a production like that.
Yep.
I mean, Seagal by this time, 93 would have been out for justice or thereabouts, right?
There you go.
And
Yeah.
Under Siege had just come out, so he was huge, yes. But was he the kind of draw card that could do a double like that?
And the film has a totally different tone to it if it's Seagal and Van Damme. It's not.
Oh,
It doesn't
totally.
have does not have the
Totally.
comedic angle. With
No laughs. Yep,
Yep.
that's right.
Exactly. Some other fun stuff here is during filming, Rob Schneider became friends with Sandra Bullock, but had reservations about her next project, some bus movie, and he didn't think it would take off. Speed 94 was, of course, coming out the next year and was the most critically and financially successful of the films. Now, we all know Adrienne Barbeau, beautiful girl. It's done a lot of cool films, Swamp Thing, of course. But she did the computer voice. And of course she had voiced the computer in the thing as well. So she's got a second career, which I thought was kind of funny. So yeah. Inspired by the film, guys, Dennis Rodman had his hair dyed and styled the same way the character Simon Phoenix, played by Snipes, for his San Antonio Spurs debut, which was the start of Rodman dyeing his hair in different colors. Snipes hated this hairdo and shaved it off as soon as filming wrapped. And I just want to show the little Simon Phoenix action figure here. That's Rodman right there, also using that hairstyle. There you go. And I remember this, and I was really jealous, guys, that I did not get a chance to participate this, though. But celebrating the film's 25th anniversary, Taco Bell recreated the 2032 San Angeles version of the restaurant at 2018 San Diego Comic-Con. I put a shout out to my friends that were there saying, hey, if they got any swag, anything cool, please grab it up for me. None of you did that. Thank you very much.
if I remember right, that was one of the craziest years at Comic-Con because you not only had that, but that's when G4 was huge, and they were there with Attack of the Show with Pereira and Olivia Munn. And Comic-Con was just insane. Plus, you had Marvel and Hall B, Hall C, and so there was one of the more insane Comic-Cons.
And as we mentioned earlier, or alluded to, one last thing: the film found renewed relevance during COVID-19 pandemic. The film has seen as predicted where the calls to end the practice of shaking hands and the shortage of toilet paper. Yep, everyone's now going to fist bumping and stuff like that. So yeah. Fist bumping. All right, guys. Next, I got to talk about video. I love video, guys. I remember getting the VHS as soon as it came out. I missed the Laserdisc until later, but a lot of this stuff here, see these pictures here, guys? That's actually my collection. My own personal collection. And I did want to show this off real quick video. I do have the Laserdisc. This is the Japanese version right here, or the overseas version here, and I have the regular Laserdisc, but it got a little damaged. As you see, came there. I'll find one that's a little less damaged, though. Adam, what was the first version of physical media that you acquired?
The novel. That's the first thing I got. And then after the novel was the VHS when it first came out. I got an NX rental version, but I don't like having all the stickers and crap all over them. So even when I had those, I ended up getting one from Kmart or our Walmart out here.
Right.
And so I had that. Then I bought the game. And I think I still got that somewhere because we got a stack. We got 2 full massive crates, Tupperware crates filled with the old cartridge games, without the boxes, mind you. But yeah, then I bought the Blu-ray, which came out. And now I've got that one is, the Pizza Hut edition. All of these are the Pizza Hut edition except for the VHS. I've got a US VHS with Taco Bell.
I think we should, we didn't really clarify this, but because of the different licensing agreement, guys, Taco Bell didn't is not really in Australia. And so
not at the time. It was in the
Yeah.
1980s up until about the mid 90s, like 92, but then they folded.
So they creatively put Pizza Hut, which isn't in Australia, and redubbed some of the lines. You can see their mouths are wrong when they say Taco Bell and they say Pizza Hut and stuff like that. But what the first thing I had to do, Mr. Old Mulleted One, when I visited Australia for the first time, was find the actual Blu-ray version of your copy that has the Pizza Hut reference. And that's what this one is right here.
Yeah, which turns out to be anything outside of the States was that version. So the PAL version for the UK and Australia and New Zealand and Canada, all the way out to Africa and Asia and stuff like that. All of them have Pizza Hut.
Just for reference, Kyle, because I'm going to ask you real quick on physical media. VHS was released in March of 94, DVD in October of 97, and 2014 re-released, and then on Blu-ray on August 11th. When did you first revisit this on physical media?
It was a DVD. I got it on DVD. I also know too, I believe in 2024 there is a 4K coming out of Demolition Man.
Don't tease me. I need that. I need that bad. Everything's coming out. Okay, guys. I do want to touch on the sequel here. There's been a lot of talk about a sequel, Demolition Man 2. This is an article that came out April 18th of this year, 2023, the 30th anniversary, what we know so far. And Stallone has gone, hey, it's probably going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And in, what was it? The sequel to Demolition Man. And there was an Instagram Q&A where he says, here's what Stallone said. I think there is. We're working on it right now with Warner Brothers, and it's looking fantastic. So that should come out. That's going to happen. There's no doubt that Sylvester Stallone will return as John Spartan due to his age, 73 at the time of this interview. It's hard to predict how big of a role he'll play. He says Wesley Snipes will also return for Demolition Man 2. At the end of the first film, his character was frozen and smashed into pieces. It's a mystery how they'll bring him back. Maybe cloning, who knows? Sandra Bullock has not yet announced whether she'll return in recent years. She has been particularly active in films, despite being age 55. The last movie she acted was in Lost City, and that came out in 2022. Rumor has it, it'll, of course, jump forward in time, maybe take place in 2058. As I mentioned, resurrect Wesley Snipes, cloning him, maybe. What do you want to see in a sequel? Adam, what do you think?
I think, you need to, if it's going to be Demolition Man, it needs to, I think like the good sequels that deal with jumping ahead in time. Blade Runner 2049 is a perfect example. Take what works and push it to its extreme. We get to see the cities, but we also get to see outside of it. So I think we need to branch out past just San Angeles and even the underground, and see what happened with, with Dennis.
The rest of the world, right?
Yeah. So what has happened? Have things got better? But obviously, if they're bringing back, Simon Phoenix, something else has gone wrong. Having said that, this could be a vehicle where you bring in some of those outside elements. Maybe Schwarzenegger jumps in. Maybe
yes.
Terry Crews, some of the crew. Because at the end of the day, they're all buddies. And I could definitely see Randy Couture and Dolph Lundgren jumping in here somewhere.
So basically, you want a futuristic version of an Expendables 4 that's good. All right, Kyle, what are your thoughts on a sequel? I like where you went with that, Adam. That was good.
So with a sequel, it's hard to say. So much time has passed. I mean, I think this is, if you're going to do a sequel, you've got to address the lingering plot point of his family and of his daughter. I think you have to address that.
Yeah.
Bringing back Simon Phoenix, it's the future. There's lots of different ways it could do that. I think it's just I could see a retired version of John Spartan that's finally accepted the future and kind of found his niche in it, and then is pulled back in because somebody resurrects Simon Phoenix somehow. But I want to throw this idea out at you guys because I have an idea if we were to remake Demolition Man and who I would like to see in it.
Ooh. Oh man, Kyle, I didn't even think about that because I don't want that to happen. But hey, it's in the remake era. What you got?
For the John Spartan, okay, I'm thinking, okay, I need this to still have a little bit of a comedy element to it and funny feeling. So for John Spartan, because if you have not seen Zac Efron lately from his latest film where he's playing a professional wrestler, dude is ripped. I would cast Zac Efron to be John Spartan, because I would like to see him do a little more action films. I would cast Michael B. Jordan to play Simon Phoenix. And I would cast Haley Steinfeld in the Sandra Bullock role.
Can you get on that right now, Kyle? Because I'd like to see that. Adam, you have any thoughts on casting a remake of Demolition Man? No.
I think Haley Steinfeld's great, and she's very of that mold. Michael B. Jordan, yeah, definitely. Maybe too good an actor for something like this. Zac Efron, no. And yes, I have seen. Look, he looks the goods and stuff like that. But you need an established tough guy to do this role. This is something like I hate to say it, a Statham, but it is a Statham sort of. He's
a little on the older side. I was thinking more of Chris Hemsworth now. I mean, he's a little younger.
Well, even Hemsworth. It needs to be something memorable that we already know as an action person. Put Zac Efron in there, they're like, huh? What?
And but I would like to see the aspect being, I want to see Efron get a shot at this kind of role, because
you want him to branch out, basically.
Yeah, branch out into actually. See, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think for a Demolition Man film, it needs to be somebody that's got the action in their catalog already.
So go ahead, I was just gonna say, my ultimate fear would be Hollywood would do this, but they would take it too far and go something like Chips or Baywatch with it. Remakes.
Yeah,
true.
True. First of all, I want to see a sequel. I want to see these cast members get back together. And I think that, I think there would be a funny moment where you see, let's just say it's Meryl Streep. I don't know, because they're around the same age with Stallone, and having to explain why these two people are around the same age, but one's the daughter because of the 50-year or the 40-year difference or whatever it is, or whatever, 30-year. She kind of caught up to him. And I think that would be kind of fun to explain. And then, maybe, she helps out. But I need to see the main crew get back together for this to work. Sprinkled in with some new talent, of course.
Bring back Bob Gunton.
Oh God, yeah, definitely. Rob Schneider can come back. See what kind of how funny would it be if Rob Schneider came back and he's president now?
Kevin, I left out one piece of casting too in my.
Oh, okay.
I would want Bill Burr in the Dennis Leary role.
Oh my God, yes. or maybe Bill Burr is like, his brother or something. That would be kind of fun, All right, guys, I want to get your final thoughts on this. First of all, do you have any critiques? Is there anything that would have made this better? Because I was thinking about this, because this is a question that we ask in Couch Potato Theater. Yes, I would have loved to have seen the cut scenes, but I believe, Adam, you're right. It's not crucial to it. I don't know if I would change anything. I don't know what would make it better. It's just, it's one of my favorite movies for a reason. Kyle?
I think the thing with Demolition Man is, I don't know if you would change anything with it, but I think there's an aspect of it with how it handled future technology, especially at the time, and as we see now, how much of it is actually being affected by in the modern era. But at that time, I think if you play up a little bit of it more seriously and not just for laughs, this movie probably has a little bit stronger reception in the box office at the time and lasting power. But then it doesn't get that. I don't know if it necessarily gets that cult classic status that it has now. So it's a very fine line with the movie. This is one of those movies that's just kind of found itself in that perfect niche to where, it got a little bit of it. It got a big push when it came up because it had Stallone in it. It had Snipes in it. They were pushing it both, but it really didn't get its footing. But then as the world changed, it reflected more of what reflects of our world, and we identify with it more now. And so there are things in there that are much closer to home. So that's why I think one of the reasons why it has a bigger audience now, and the internet. This is a very meme-heavy movie, and that's one of the things. They pulled a lot of memes from it. Sylvester Stallone is beloved. Sandra Bullock is beloved. And so when you can pull memes from that and then have something like the 3 seashells that just is timeless for people to talk about, people are going to be talking about the 3 seashells until the end of the earth. But but I think that's what makes this movie timeless. And I think that's why it wins, is because it found a magic elixir to it might not be the best of films, but there's just aspects of it that are always going to be applicable. And I think that's what's unique about it.
You know, I always ask the 5x5 question, and Kyle, that's a great way to sum that up. You know, I think we've kind of answered that, but I think it would be kind of cool if they do bring back the original members for a sequel, that maybe they use that unused footage, if it's still available, as a flashback, maybe, you know, when he's talking about, or maybe use it in a different way. I don't know. But Adam, I want to get your final thoughts on this film. Kyle made a good point. It's cultural references. People are kind of falling in love with it or discovering it for the first time. And, you know, age has made this film better. Let's just be honest with this, you know, because of the stuff that's happened. It's fun to joke about it and think about it. What do you think?
Don't have as much to say probably as you guys do in terms of what's wrong with it or what should be changed. And if I was asked myself, hey, Adam, what do you think of this movie? Do you think they should change it? My response would be, yeah, nah. You know, like there's just no need to change a movie it is what it is, and it's a product of its era, you know, and a product of its creators. Being a short film, you know, it doesn't need to be Peter Jackson's 4 hours 45 length. It told the story it needed to tell, and it told it efficiently in a fun way, in an energetic manner, with great leads, great action. You know, it's not the greatest action in the world, but it fit the movie, right? We had a great stunt crew. I think in terms of story, it was bang on what it needs. It doesn't need to continue that story down the line and use, you know, elements that weren't used. Yeah, sure. I mean, that's what sequels are. They continue the threads that were left. They want us to, you know, follow on from what came before. But this movie is, why we're talking about it 30 years later, is because it was perfect when it was, you know, released, and does not need to change whatsoever.
Excellent point. By the way, shout out to you in the message chat here. You sent me a link to an auction in Australia for the actual book. I would almost jump on it if it didn't have a little rip tear at the top corner of the cover. But it's right now, it's like going for that particular one's going for just over $30. It's tempting though. It is. I'll tell you that right now. So I have to look into that. I would love to get the audio or the book on that and check that out. Demolition Man, guys. As I said, it's in my top 5 movies of all time. And I'm talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark being number 1, talking about Sound of Music, Ben-Hur, Aliens, Highlander. They're all right there. Top 5, top 6. And then I you know, Kyle and I, we've podcasted about our favorite movies of all time. This one's up there for that reason. I love rewatching this film. I love watching it in Blu-ray, DVD, Laserdisc. And for when it comes to Sylvester Stallone films, it's probably my favorite because of the character that he plays and how well he works with the other characters. You know, obviously you could go, you know, Rocky, Rambo, but his character's fun in this movie. Is just fun. This movie had a bunch of great ingredients that worked together, and visually it is fantastic. The costumes are fantastic. The cast is fantastic. The set decoration is fantastic. It hasn't aged badly at all overall. I just think that this movie is special for so many reasons, and I could just go on and on about it, but I think that we've covered it really well in this podcast. And I want to say thank you guys for, first of all, talking about the 3 seashells. I apologize for certain pictures that I put up. Kyle, you had a thought?
Well, yeah, I just real quick. There are a lot of people out there who think this is his most underrated film.
Yeah,
I tend to disagree with that. So I want to ask you guys real quick. What do you think is Stallone's most underrated film? Because I know for me, I'm just gonna say it's the film Lockup. I love that movie. I think he doesn't get enough attention for that movie. I think that's a really good movie. What about you guys? I'm curious what
Adam, I'm gonna go to you.
Over the top. Film. Over the top.
I'm gonna go his most underrated film, and we've talked about it countless times, is I'm gonna go with Tango and Cash, because he took a calculated move to look different and act different and to make fun of himself in that movie. And I think that it was in a way a turning point, for him as well, when it came to certain type of characters. So I'm going to go with that one. Kyle?
Like I said, for me, it's Lockup. I think
Lockup?
that film is one of his more underrated performances, and him and Donald Sutherland in that have one of the more intense scenes in a Stallone film I've seen.
I need to revisit that one. That one's a tough one. I remember because it's a good one. It's a tough one to watch at times. I got to revisit it though. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. If you're watching this, thank you so much. Please join us on the YouTube channel, Fandom Podcast Network. Please give us a like, share, subscribe. This is the 30th anniversary, of course, of Demolition Man. And Kyle, I think this has been a good reason to remash this because, of course, we are celebrating 30th anniversary. And I told Kyle, I said, look, if we're going to do this, well, we're going to do this. I can't do it without Adam. I just can't. Adam, Lethal Mullet, man, how can we get a hold of you on the social interwebs?
Okay, on anything social, it is the handle at the Lethal Mullet. You can catch me on there. You'll catch me on FPN as well, guys. The shows are always on there on fpn.bobbin.com. And definitely check out the Facebook page at the same handle where we're putting up all sorts of stuff. I'm also putting recommendations for movies you've probably never seen or should see that are just action movies which fall by the wayside, and even streaming picking up. Get a hold of hard media while you can, because guess what? It's filtering out of existence, folks. We'll see you there.
And spoiler alert, I'll be visiting Australia in April, and we're going to hook up and have some fun nerding out on physical media.
Yeah, and he'll go back to Woolworths.
Yeah, that's right. Kyle.
I just want to throw out, too, that, as we get ready to wind down this year, the Fandom Podcast Network, we're not quite done yet. We always do a very special holiday themed couch potato theater, and we will be revealing what that will be very soon here on the network. And Kevin, while I've got you here, I have a homework assignment for you.
Yes, please.
Well, I'm getting ready to go on vacation, and when I come back, it is time. And I know you have a 3D TV now, which you're very happy about. So I want you to watch giant robots, giant monsters in 3D, because it's time to prevent the apocalypse.
Oh man, you don't have to pull my teeth to do that. So yeah, we're looking. Do you want to say what you're talking about, or
we're gonna, we all when we were young boys at Christmas, we wanted the big robots, we wanted the big spaceships, we wanted the giant monsters. This year is the 10-year anniversary of Pacific Rim. Yeah. And I will be squeezing Pacific Rim in one way or the other, but because Kevin now has it on 3D, and it's, in my opinion, one of the best 3D films ever made. That's just below that Avatar bar. But we will be sticking in for the 10th anniversary Pacific Rim.
I will be giving my thoughts on that. Yes, yeah. Well, we have some fun stuff coming out. Make sure you pay attention to that. Kyle, how can we reach you on social media?
You can find me, of course, on Facebook under Kyle Wagner. You can find me, of course, on the Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page, or any of the other pages for our shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. You can find me on X/Twitter/ whatever it'll be the next time I blink, at Kyle W, and you can find me on Threads and Instagram at Kyle Fandom. I'm working on getting on Blue Sky too. So
yes. Facebook, of course, Fandom Podcast Network. Hit us there. Email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Instagram and X. Make sure you follow us there. And again, please hit the YouTube if you're watching this. Thank you very much. Please share it. We appreciate it. If you're listening to us, fpnet.podbean.com is our master. We're all the master for all of our audio podcasts drop there. My name is Kevin Reitzel. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, X, of course, and Threads. As I said earlier, Spartan_Phoenix. Check us out there. So thank you very much. Adam, thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this. I could not have done Demolition Man without you.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Kyle, thank you so much.
Be well, Mr. Mullet. Be well, Mr. Reitzel.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network for our special presentation of Demolition Man, our 30th anniversary. And until next time, We will see you on the couch. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Goodbye.